This conference will now be recorded.
Hello and welcome to the October 1st, 2020 general meeting of the Town of Monroe Planning and Zoning Commission. It's now 7 o'clock and the meeting will come to order. I'm going to start the meeting by reading the information that's required to be read. We will then be going to an executive session, which would just be a brief moment when most of you will have to sign off, or we can at least put you on hold in a waiting room. So on March 14th, 2020, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic and in an effort to reduce the risk of transmission by virtue of attendance at public meetings, Governor Lamont suspended in-person open meeting requirements and permits conducting public meetings remotely by conference call, video conferencing, or other technology. Copy of the full text of the Executive Order 7B1 is available for review at the town's website. Accordingly, Monroe has selected GoToMeeting as its preferred technology. This technology will permit up to 250 members of the public to participate in real time via computer, tablet, or smartphone. It is highly recommended that any interested participant download and utilize the GoToMeeting software, which is available. Each meeting may have a unique participation code, phone number, and link. Please be sure that you have accessed the correct information at the correct meeting. Any member of the public who desires to submit written information relative to the business set forth on the agenda may do so up to 1 hour in advance of the meeting by electronic mail to the address set forth. Notice is hereby given that this remote public meeting shall, number one, permit the public to view or listen anonymously, and when permitted, participate in real time. 2, be recorded and posted on the town's website within 7 days. And 3, be made available to the public within a reasonable amount of time. In addition to standard parliamentary procedure, as outlined on this agenda, the following special rules shall apply. Please mute your microphone as to reduce background noise at any time you are not speaking. Prior to speaking and on each occasion, each speaker shall clearly state their name and title for the record. The use of the chat feature is prohibited and will not be considered. Notice is hereby given that only 250 applicants may access this remote electronic public meeting at any one time. Access is granted solely by the GoToMeeting technology on a first-come, first-served basis and is not within the control of the Town of Monroe. While it is anticipated that this participant limit will not be exceeded tonight, should it be, this meeting may be adjourned and continued at a later date. Thank you. I'm going to call the roll. Please respond with here. Bruno Maini, Secretary.
Bruno Maini, Vice Chair, is here.
Oh, let me change that. Ryan Condon, Secretary.
Ryan Condon's here.
Leon Ambrosi, Commissioner.
Leon Ambrosi's here.
Robert Westland, Commissioner.
Robert Westland's here.
Ronald Schneider, Alternate Commissioner.
Ronald Schneider's here.
Dominic Panici, Alternate Commissioner.
Dominic Panici here.
Rick Schultz, Town Planner.
Present.
William Agresta, Planning and Zoning Administrator.
I'm here.
Georgia Cantois, Meeting Moderator.
Here.
And Sarah Stroud, Recording Secretary.
Here.
Thank you. At the beginning of the meeting, we do have a public participation period. This is the time when the public is welcome to participate and ask the Commission questions or speak about any matters that are not before the Land Use Commission or the Planning and Zoning Commission at this time. Are there any members of the public that would like to address the Planning and Zoning Commission at this time? Are there any members of the public that would like to address the Planning and Zoning Commission at this time regarding a matter that is not before the Planning and Zoning Commission? Hearing none, then the chairman would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session.
Ambrosi, second.
I have a
And
motion
invite-
and I have a second.
And invite Rick and Will.
And can you please clarify your motion to go into executive session for the purpose?
We're going into executive session for the purpose of consultation with our attorney, Barbara.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session with consultation for consultation with the attorney.
And I will invite Rick Schultz, William Agresta, Georgia Contois,
And that's it.
to,
And Barbara.
and of course, Barbara, to remain in the meeting. All right, I'm going to call the roll. Mayini,
Excuse me, who seconded that?
Leon Ambrosi.
Thank you.
I'm going to call the roll for a vote. Mayini,
Yes.
London,
Yes.
Ambrosi,
Yes.
Westland,
Westland, yes.
Schneider,
Schneider doesn't vote.
Am I seated?
No. Michael, you're the last vote.
O'Reilly, yes.
5-0, motion passed.
Okay, Georgia, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Can you explain to the public what they should be doing next?
Yes, sir. If everyone that is not invited to executive session can please log out. If you don't log out, we're going to unfortunately have to push you out. Wait about 2 minutes and then use the credentials again to log back into the meeting. It's going to put you in a holding room until we are done with executive session, and then it will automatically let you back in. So wait a couple minutes and then log back in the same way that you did earlier. So I apologize, everyone. We're basically sending them out, but
Welcome back, everyone.
Somebody mute.
I hope that wasn't too much of an inconvenience. Next item on the agenda is a general appointment, 195, 201, and 211 Main Street, Affordable Senior Housing Development. I believe Dave Hoops, if you're still, are you on yet, Dave?
I am, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Did you want to start the general appointment discussion?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think there's some feedback somewhere.
My name is Dave Woods. I am a lawyer with an office in Hartford. I represent Connecticut Housing Partners. I'm getting some kind of feedback. Is anyone else? Or is that just me? Other people shaking their head?
Dave, are you using a microphone or are you using your computer?
Using my computer. Okay. Should I, do you have a suggestion?
It's only showing me getting feedback from you specifically, not from anybody else. That's the only reason why I'm asking.
Do you have a headset? You're muted.
Yeah. I wasn't having this problem before.
Do you have a headset?
Leave the meeting and try to come back in, because I was using the mic before and not getting the feedback. What do you think?
That's worth a try, but if you also have a headset, that would be helpful.
Do you have another member of your team that would like to start?
Yes, I could probably do that. You guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, can you just introduce yourself, please?
Sure. My name's Steve Gulick. I'm Director of Real Estate Development with Connecticut Housing Partners. We are the developers of this project. Basically, to summarize the project, it is a 49-unit senior development on 2.707 acres of land, frontage with frontage on Route 25 in Monroe. We have been working with Rick Schultz and the town to come up with a concept and design for this property and push it through as affordable. It'll be 100% affordable. We are kind of up against some deadlines for our funding. We have a capital stack that consists of about 5 different sources, some of which are competitive, and we need to have our zoning application submitted at least to be able to be considered for those competitive sources. So we've been talking with Rick about that process, trying to work with the town, and unfortunately right now our timing is a little bit different than the town's timing with the development of your PODC. So that's kind of it. Renee Dobos is our CEO. She could speak a little bit more to you about Connecticut Housing Partners and our history.
Rick, can I jump in here? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, the feedback seems to be gone. I have no explanation for that, and my apologies.
Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my name is, I'll start over. My name is Dave Hoops. I am a lawyer. I have an office in Hartford. I represent Connecticut Housing Partners. And we do want to say that we appreciate the opportunity to have a pre-application informal discussion. It's something I've found to be helpful in the past in other matters. And we are here to discuss our proposal at 195, 201, and 211 Main Street. Connecticut Housing Partners is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide affordable housing. Has an outstanding reputation and track record of building and operating outstanding projects. Its executive director, Renee Dobos, will talk a little bit about the organization in a minute. Our proposal, as Steve mentioned, is for 49 senior housing units on a 2.07 acre parcel. All of our units qualify as affordable housing units under Section 8-30G of the Connecticut General Statutes. And so it is our intention to apply under that statute, 30G. And I'm aware that you're working on a new regulation of your own that relates to parts of the Route 25 corridor to encourage more affordable housing in that particular area of town. We've reviewed the most recent draft provided to us by Rick. It doesn't actually help our project, but we do believe and hope that your efforts to encourage more affordable housing in Monroe would dovetail with what we would like to do. Our application is ready to go, and it will include a new draft affordable housing regulation. Just as an aside, under 30G, there's no requirement that you follow the traditional land use procedures, but we've chosen to follow the rules that are in the Monroe zoning regulations as much as we possibly can. And to that end, process that will be reflected in our application will be 3 parts: an application for a regulation change, a new affordable housing regulation, and then an application to rezone this parcel to this new regulation, and then an application for a site development plan for approval of the actual development proposal. And that's a pretty typical way that 30G matters are handled. It's not the only way. And we think it's the best for everyone, including the town, because it respects, even though 30G supersedes local zoning regulations, all local zoning regulations. This approach, respects the existing regulations and the process as much as possible, consistent with 32. I have indicated to Rick, and I'll indicate to you now, that we are more than happy, more than willing to work with the town on the contents of the zoning regulation that will work for our project, and hopefully will work for the town, in achieving its broader objective of trying to encourage more affordable housing, especially in the Route 25 corridor. We've chosen to write our regulation, and I've shared this with Rick, as I mentioned. We've chosen to write it so that it applies only to this particular parcel. And the reason we did that is that's what towns usually want when 30G matters. But we've modeled it on as much as possible on your existing housing opportunity regulation, and also from the draft of what you're working on now, your new regulation that was shared with us about a month ago. We've taken as much as possible from those two sources and tried to incorporate it in our regulation. And if you found that it suffices and was satisfactory, it would be a very easy thing to take our regulation and expand it so that it would apply to other areas in the Route 25 corridor. So once again, it's our intention and desire to work with the town much as possible on a new regulation, works for us, and on our application and project in general. You'll hear from our landscape architect and from our architect shortly about the specifics of our proposal. We hope you'll agree with us that it's a well thought out plan, and it will result in an attractive development like the other developments that Connecticut Housing Partners has built that hopefully everyone will be proud of. The site can readily accommodate this project, and it's a very appropriate site, this project, because it's surrounded by open space on all sides except the one. There's also town-owned open space across the road, and that the reason that makes it a very appropriate site is that inherently minimizes neighbor impacts. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone might have at this time for me or later, but if not, what I'd like to do now is turn the floor over to Renee DeBose to talk a little bit about Connecticut Housing Partners.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time. Connecticut Housing Partners is celebrating 30 years of being in business, and we have multiple developments throughout Fairfield County. We have specific elderly housing in the town of Wilton, the town of Trumbull, and the town of Fairfield. And all three of these towns have found that having this type of housing in their community has enhanced their community. Just to give you a sense of the type of demographic of resident that would be living in this facility, currently in our facility, 70% of the households are women only, 30% are men. There are very few households that have two people living in the household because as people are aging in place, their spouses are no longer with them. And what makes it critical is that if you start out in your retirement years as husband and wife, and one of the spouses passes away, instantly income is reduced in half because that Social Security income that was coming from one of the spouses disappears. And often it puts that household into a bit of a crisis. This community would also have supportive services surrounding it. This is how we keep the families and the residents connected. We touch the residents frequently to make sure that they're okay and that they're aging in place gracefully. Our goal is for them to stay in this housing until the very end. And we really work hard to make sure that happens. And if there is some kind of health issue that we need to deal with, we work with the family members so that we can come up with a plan that helps the households be able to stay in place, whether it means connecting them with other services or trying to work with the family to create some planning. The other thing is that this community of people that will be in this housing really won't impact your town infrastructure in a negative way. In a lot of ways, they'll enhance it because you'll be bringing in nearly 50 households that will be spending money locally and contributing to your economic infrastructure. In addition, just because we're a nonprofit, this is not the type of housing that is exempt from taxes, so it will also increase your tax base in the town as well. And we were looking at some of the census data for the town of Monroe, and right now, residents that are between 60 and 69, 11% of your population is in that age group, which is about 2,000 people. 70 to 79, 8% are in that age group. That's about 1,500 individuals, and 80% plus 3%, that's about 588 people. But of that, of your seniors, 2% of your seniors are below the poverty line right now. And that equates to about 392 people in your community alone. So there truly is a need and a demand for this type of housing. And what it helps it do, it helps them stay in the community that they've lived in for probably a good portion of their lives. And also, if they have children and grandchildren, we're keeping grandma and grandpa close to the family unit instead of having to ship grandma and grandpa off to another community that might be far away, and also reduces the socialization with their nuclear family, which is extremely important for mental health as people age. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions about our organization. We have a lot of pride in our developments. Please visit our website at cthousingpartners.org, and you will see a sampling of our properties. They're beautiful properties. We only build the best. And in this particular community, we're also planning on putting a hair salon inside the building. There'll be community room space. There'll be plenty of programming in which we're encouraging socialization. And we'll also have a chapel so that, we bring all non-denominational religious figures will come in and help our residents with their prayerfulness. So thank you very much.
Are there any questions at this point?
Where is the closest project you have to us here in Monroe?
I think that would be Trumbull.
In Trumbull?
Yep.
Do you have an address?
Yes, it's Trumbull is 1235 Huntington Turnpike. We also have a very large development in Wilton of about 74 units. That's 21 Station Road. And then we have a small development in Fairfield, which is 580 Villa Avenue.
Got it. Thank you.
Do you? I have a question. Do you do non-age restricted housing also?
Yes, we have multiple family developments. We have about 1,000 people that live with us. We have 14 developments throughout Fairfield County.
How long has the one been in Trumbull?
The one in Trumbull is about 14, 15 years old. We worked with the first selectman of the town. We also built condos that we resold as affordable in the town of Trumbull as well. And the Wilton property is about 6 years old.
What is your occupancy rates, and is there any waiting lists?
Yes, there are always waiting lists. Our elderly developments are 99 to 100% occupied. You can imagine with the elderly population, the turnover rate is more frequent than it is in a family development. So we go through the wait list pretty quickly.
So all these units are owned, or they're owned or rented? They're owned, right?
No, this is rental property.
Rental.
Hi, Commissioner Maini. We currently don't have a regulation for this, do we?
No, we don't. They are preparing a regulation that we are going to be working with them for a regulation. Yes, we'd have to have a new regulation.
Is that regulation going to keep it strictly age restricted?
Yes, it's our hopes that it will be age restricted. I think it's 62 and above, is that right?
That is correct.
I mean, that's all nice, but that's something that the commission would have to agree upon as well, and make sure that the commission goes for it. I don't know. I really don't have any questions because unfortunately we don't have a regulation for this, and that's kind of where I stand.
Yep. Hey, Mike, I just want to do a summary when all the commissioners are done.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, may I jump in and just address Commissioner Condon's comments?
Go ahead.
So under 30G, you don't have to, 30G exempts you from all of the regulations, all of the rules. You don't have to have a regulation. You could just say, here's a 30G application, call it whatever you want. You call it up. I've seen it done as simply an application for a certificate of zoning compliance. We have prepared a proposed regulation as part of really a single 30G application, because we think it's better to follow the traditional processes as much as possible, and we think the town would want us to do that. And I do want to stress that you don't have to have a regulation, and I want to make sure everybody understands when they see our regulation, it is tailored to fit our project, and that's completely appropriate in 30G, even though it oftentimes wouldn't be outside of 30G.
Okay, are there any other questions regarding the 830G or any questions for any of the presenters? All right, if not, then I'm going to have Rick do a brief summary.
This is Emily Weckman from 2 Design. Dave, would you like the site team to present the site plan briefly?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it was our hope that you might want to see our, a brief presentation from our design team.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Why don't you go ahead with that?
Great, thank you. This is Emily Weckman from 2 Design. I would kindly ask if you would allow the screen sharing for me to happen.
Emily, give me 1 second, okay?
Great, thank you.
Yep.
When you do present that, can you point out some of the, obviously other than the unit density, some of the other major issues of departure from the current zoning, so they can better understand not only your plan layout, but how it departs from current zoning?
Yes, I can. In regards to the B1 zoning, I can speak to that. Okay, can everyone confirm that you are seeing our site plan on the screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so I will begin. Good evening, my name is Emily Weckman. I represent the Office of 2 Design. We are the landscape architect for the proposed Monroe Senior Housing Project. As briefly described before, the existing site includes 3 parcels located along Route 25 that total just over 2 acres. They are currently zoned in the B1 zone. 2 of the existing parcels have homes on them, while the third is wooded. The site consists of steep slopes to the north and south ends of the property, as well as along Old Main Street. There is about a 30-foot grade change from the northwest corner to the southeast corner. An inland and wetland application has been submitted for this project, as portions of the site are included in the upland review area. Upland review areas include along the southeast property line, as wetlands and the Pequannock River are located off the property on the east side of Route 25. The proposed development includes 49 units of affordable senior housing for the community. The proposed New England style building is sited to the north end of the site, while the 59 parking lot is to the south. The access drive is located to the north, connecting Old Main Street with a proposed T intersection to Route 25. The grading of the site responds to the existing conditions and site constraints related to the septic system. Retaining walls are located in the northwest corner and along the east. Site walls along here.
Deny.
Any slope greater than 3 to 1 is treated with riprap. The access drive climbs from the intersection at 8% and tapers off to 2% as it approaches the parking lot. The overall parking lot is graded to just over 3%, with the accessible spaces being located adjacent to the building with an accessible walk to the main entrance. A patio extends off the south end of the building to provide a sunny outdoor space for the residents to enjoy. Other site improvements include site lighting, signage, a screen trash enclosure, fencing, modular block walls, and new plantings. The septic and drainage systems are located under the parking lot. The site drainage will be the same or less than a 25-year storm with no direct impact to the adjacent wetlands. Dave Bjorkland, our civil engineer, is present to address any other drainage or septic questions. But first, I would like to turn it over to David Goslin from Krosky Architects to describe the architecture. Dave, I apologize. Let me just, speaking to the question before, let me zoom in and just, they had asked previously about how it deviated from the B1 zoning. So here are some of our setbacks that are being included. The rear setback line deviates from the B1 zone, as well as the side setback. And now I would like to turn it over to Dave Goslin, if you could allow him to screen share as well to discuss the architecture.
While you switch the screens, I'm just going to note a few other things that deviate from zoning so the commission understands. The 3-to-1 slopes and riprap. I don't know the heights of the retaining walls, but they're probably in the yards and may exceed the height requirements. Grading along the property lines probably change and exceed the standards. Obviously, the use and density. The height of the building, I believe you're proposing a 3-story building. The setbacks, as you mentioned, and I believe the design of the drainage system is not consistent with what you've typically deal with. So those are some of the other issues that we should look at.
Okay, do I have the ability to switch to my screen?
Emily, I need you to turn yours off so I can switch it over if you don't mind.
Okay. Okay, there you go.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Dave Goslin. I'm a principal with Krosky Architects. We're the project architects for this. This is a three-dimensional rendering of the proposed building that we've designed. As you can see, it's a three-story wood frame structure. As previously mentioned, it's going to contain 49 units of one-bedroom apartments, rental apartments. The total square footage works out to be 48,654 square feet. Of the 49 units, the unit average is about close to 700 square feet. Each apartment will have its own kitchen facility, its own bathroom, an open living dining area, and a private bedroom, as well as closet space, entry closet, and linen closets and coat closets. Also included within the facility are several amenities that Renee kind of touched on before. As you come into the entry lobby, there'll be a community room, which is kind of over in this end of the building here. The community room will have an outdoor terrace, which will open up to have a covered porch and a patio. Also off of the community room will be a kitchen with an activity room so that they can kind of host certain events for the residents and have card games and certain activities within that space as well. Also included is a nurse's station for the staff and the residents that live there. The hair salon, which is going to be private to the residents. It's not open to the public. It's just a private amenity for the people who live here. There'll be common laundry rooms on each floor for all the residents, as well as a chapel and media room throughout the building. The materials that we've kind of depicted in this rendering, we're showing a stone water table base around the perimeter of the building. And then on the main siding of the building will be a mix of different colors, all of cementitious siding, both the trim and the accent panels as well would be all cementitious, so it's maintenance free and rot resistance. The shingles would be asphalt shingles, architectural shingles, 30-year shingle. And at this point we have double hungs shown for the windows, and there'll be faux chimneys on the roof, which we will be using to hide all the mechanical roof vents that penetrate the roof. We'll collect them in the chimney so they're not seen and unsightly on the roof. So basically, in a nutshell, that's what we're proposing at this point in time. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer the questions.
How many elevators?
There's 2 elevators, one at each end of the building, and there's also 2 emergency fire stairs at each end of the building. And the elevators will be stretcher compliant.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, does that conclude your presentation?
It does include the formal part of our presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any questions from the commissioners? If not, then I'm going to hand it over to Rick Schultz.
Thank you, Mike. As the commission is aware, and the applicant as well, the commission is updating the 2010 POCD with our consultant, Francisco Gomes. The update does include a comprehensive evaluation of the affordable housing needs for the town of Monroe. We recently completed our questionnaire, and affordable housing was covered in that. It needs to be noted that Monroe and all the communities within the state of Connecticut will be mandated to submit an affordable housing plan by 2021, whereby sites are shown in the plan as potential affordable housing locations. Now, we all know from hearing tonight the applicant has time constraints. The applicant has submitted an inland wetlands commission to the Inland Wetlands Commission as a development and not under 8-30G. Francisco is aware of this application and is listening tonight. And I think, this is something that we need to talk about. Francisco is going to be talking to the commission for the next item on the agenda because we have to do a townwide informal meeting. And it's important that the commission understand, once again, that the applicant wants to move forward. Ideally, it's better to have the POCD completed. We have to do it by December. That does not coincide with the applicant. And at this point, Francisco, I didn't know if you wanted to make any statement to the commission or take it up on the next item.
Yeah, I'm happy to do so. I think it's important to note that any housing development that goes through 830G and requests basically a waiver from the applicability of the town zoning regulations has to be consistent with the town's plan of conservation and development. And the prior plan, your prior plan, which is 9 years old now, would suggest that this type of development is consistent because that plan does call for the need to provide more housing options, and particularly for the town's aging residents. And I very much expect that our new plan will have a very similar tone. And your statistics of elderly residents were mentioned a few minutes ago. One more statistic I'd like to add to that is that the town experienced 30% growth in the age 70 to 74 age cohort between 2010 and 2017. And almost all of your growth in town in age cohorts has been over the age of 50, with most of that happening in the more elder years. So you're growing older as a community. And while the town's population has remained relatively stable, you've stopped growing now for a little while, since 2008 at least, you're getting older. And there is going to be a pressing need to provide more housing options for seniors. And I fully expect that the new plan is going to point in that direction as well, and perhaps even more definitively than the prior plan. So with that said, it's really critical that we keep the process moving. And we had tremendous success with the online questionnaire. Over 2,000 responses. It is still open and available. So if you know someone that has not yet taken it or heard about it, please direct them to the town's website where there is a link. We are still receiving that participation and those comments. The survey itself also, many of the responses we received suggest that residents are concerned about their ability to stay in town as seniors. And so there's anecdotal evidence based upon what we've heard from participants. So that's very important to point out. With respect to our next steps, I would describe us as being about halfway through this process. We've done a lot of discovery. We obviously had some success in the winter with our focus group meetings, but we still need to engage the public in some sort of meeting format. And I realized at our last call, we entertained some ideas that were very appealing, such as an outdoor meeting. But as I understand it, logistically, the first selectman and everyone else who has to make a decision was concerned about basic logistics around that. So we have since decided to go to an online format, and we have 3 tentative dates. Thursday, October 15th, which is 2 weeks from today, and the following week, Wednesday the 28th, Thursday the 29th. And we need to, as soon as possible, secure one of those dates, because I would like to have at a minimum a week and a half to promote them in any and every way that we can. So if we were to choose October 15th, we need to make that decision by tomorrow so that by Monday we can start to get word out. we're going to be we're going to be really challenged to make that an interactive session and something that people can participate in. And we've had a lot of practice. Fortunately, we've had a lot of practice with that over the last 6 months on various projects. So I expect that we can make it meaningful and have some genuine participation. It's not going to replace an in-person meeting though, but it will enable us to keep moving forward and to do so within a process that's as open as possible given the constraints that are upon us right now. So what we need from the commission is to identify one of those dates and commit to it. And of course, your participation would be very beneficial as well. All right. So I'm not sure if you want to bring something you want to bring to a vote, or if you just want to, give us the authority to pick one of those that is best for the planning team and staff. I'll leave it up to you folks.
Yeah, I'm going to leave it up to Rick and Will to put the date together. I think they've already polled the commissioners to find out what date's best for us. So I think Rick and Will will get you the date. Yeah, will you be able to do that tomorrow, Rick?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Francisco.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And thank you, everyone, members of the Connecticut Housing Partners, for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners for your time.
Thank you very much. We're very excited about the project, and we hope you're just as excited as we are. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your time.
All right, well, then we're going to move along in the agenda. We have public hearings tonight. Item 7 on the agenda is SCP 2020-02, which is 556 Pepper Street, which has been adjourned and postponed to our next meeting, which will be 10/22. Number 8 on the agenda, SCP 2020-01, 64 Cambridge Drive. That has been adjourned also and postponed as well to 10/22. Number 9 on the agenda, SCP 2020-01, has been postponed as well to 10/22. That leaves us with the final public hearing, number 10, SCP 2020-03.
One second, Chairman.
Yes.
Georgia, was the item 9 to the 22 or to November?
It's to November 5th. Thank you, Will.
Thank you,
So
Will.
9 was November 5th. And I would also note that the others would be subject to making their submissions on a timely basis to a schedule.
Absolutely. So I believe we're ready to go ahead with number 10 on the agenda, SCP 2020-03, file number 1623A, 588 Pepper Street. However, I think we do need to seat one of the alternates, Will.
Why?
So, Ryan, who's next to be seated?
I don't think we have to seat everybody. Rob is now an active member.
Yeah.
Oh, all right,
Rob,
great.
Rob swore in this afternoon, I believe, for full membership. Correct, Rob?
Congratulations, Rob.
Thank you. It's about time.
All right, so Will, what do we have for exhibits?
Okay. Exhibit 1, application including narrative. Exhibit 2, engineering report. Exhibit 3, plan set. Exhibit 4, notice to Aquarian and Department of Public Health. Exhibit 5, P&Z ART comments. Exhibit 6, town engineer ART comments. Exhibit 7, health department ART comments. And Exhibit 8, copies of legal notice of butter receipts and green cards. And Ryan, are you going to read the notice?
Brian, you're muted.
Got it. Sorry. Planning and Zoning Commission, Monroe, Connecticut. Notice of public hearing to be held October 1st, 2020, in accordance with Connecticut General Statute 8-7D. A public hearing will be held on Thursday, October 1st, 2020 at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter via GoToMeeting at https://global.gotomeeting.com/join/810727493 with additional access by phone 224-501-3412, access code 810727493, concerning the following: SEP 2020-03, file number 1623A, 588 Pepper Street, I-2 District, special exception permit, site development plan application for proposed parking lot expansion, expansion of internal site driveway, establishment of accessory outdoor storage area and associated site, drainage and landscaping improvements, 588 Pepper Street LLC, owner/applicant. Please check the Town of Monroe website for announcements of meeting cancellations, rescheduling, and for instructions for attending and/or participating remotely and electronically. Complete details and copies of all related materials associated with the above matters are on file and available for viewing in the Monroe Planning and Zoning Department offices by appointment and on the town's website at monroect.monroect.org/content/343/351/373/16794.aspx.
And I'll note that this was published in Voices on September 16th, 2020, and Wednesday, September 23rd, 2020.
Thank you, Will and Commissioner Condon. And for the applicant, I believe we have the esteemed Kevin Soley.
Thank you for that, Chairman O'Reilly. For the record, my name is Kevin Soley. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut with Soley Engineering, offices located here in Monroe at 501 Main Street. So I have Georgia, I'm not sure if you could make me a presenter. We could run through a quick presentation on the project.
You got it.
So with me here this evening is actually Michael Lambert, a project manager with my office, a civil engineer, and I believe Arnie Jones, who is the applicant and client, is also, or he was on before. I hope he logged in after the executive session. Sorry, let me just make sure I'm on the right screen there. There we go. So thank you. So again, we're here this evening to talk about a proposed parking lot expansion at 588 Pepper Street. So I'm going to kind of run through a brief overview. I'm going to hand it over to Mike, who's going to talk about some of the technical aspects of our application, the site-specific information, and then we can run through some of the preliminary comments we've received from staff, and then we're anxious to hear any questions or comments the commission may have. So just to orient everyone, the site itself is located towards the northern end of town, right off of Route 25 on Pepper Street. So Pepper Street obviously does a loop. The southern end intersects near Route 59, wraps around, and then ties back into Route 25 along its, its northerly intersection, kind of across from Commerce Drive. So this site is on Pepper Street. This actually, Route 25 runs north-south. You can see here, Pepper Street comes in, runs east-west before it starts to travel south again. And this site's located at 588 Pepper Street. It's currently improved with an industrial building, and A&B Mechanical operates out of that facility. A&B Mechanical has been in business since 2003, and they moved to Monroe in 2017, and they've been operating out of this facility for since then. And they were in Monroe even prior to acquiring this site. The site's been fantastic for their business, but they have experienced some great growth, and they're looking to invest into the property and the project to develop a parking lot towards the rear of the site in the landscaped area here to allow for additional parking for them to park some of their fleet vehicles, which are currently housed at their individual employees' homes. They kind of take them home at night. We'd like the opportunity to actually have some parking on site for that. Additionally, they do have some larger vehicles which they'd want to be able to park on site, and they really just need some additional room to expand their operations and to really kind of help support their operations. Additionally, as part of our application, we are proposing some outdoor storage, which isn't currently permitted for the property. As part of that outdoor storage, they would be looking to house some empty dumpster containers. As part of their operations, they typically need to have to bring empty dumpsters to facilities where they're demolishing or demolishing existing space or things like that, and then they would be the only empty containers would be stored here, and that is part of what we're proposing with some outdoor storage. So with that, I'm actually going to pass it over to Mike Lambert, who's going to run through some of the specifics of our application, and then I'll take it back and we'll go through some of staff comments, get some feedback from the commission, and continue the dialogue. So, Mike.
Thank you, Kevin. As Kevin said, my name is Michael Lambert. I'm a professional engineer with Solely Engineering. So for the site, the existing buildings will remain. To the rear of it, we're going to propose to have 40 parking spaces for the vehicles, for the employees, the facility cars. There's also 6 spots at the northern end for all the larger vehicles that A and B is looking to purchase to expand their business. And then the outdoor storage is going to be adjacent to that, where they're going to be storing their refuge containers. With that, talking with Mr. Jones, he wants to have the storage containers on site, but when he goes off to do the project, they're going to fill up before they come back to the site and get stored. They are going to be empty storage containers, so they're not going to be holding material or construction debris in them. With this parking lot, there is going to be the need to have a circulation going around the building. As currently right now on the western side, it's a little bit of a tight drive aisle for people to kind of come in and drive back out, because when you're parking against the left side, or the left side of the driveway, if you're walking out of the building, you really can't see traffic coming or going. So it's kind of not a safe pedestrian access over there. So that was one of the reasons for having also the circulation around on the eastern side to allow trucks to come in and out and not be able to worry too much about pedestrian accesses and sightline issues there. So with all this large parking areas, there's 44,450 square feet of impervious area that we're posing in the back. Along with doing all of this impervious, we have a above ground detention basin that's going to be along the eastern side of the property, almost expanding the entire length from the north side down to the south, and it's going to be flowing north to south. Due to the parking or the driveway to the east of the building, it's a little bit of a tight throat between the property line corner and the building. So the basin almost acts as 2 basins, but there is a low flow orifice that will carry the water and have it continuously flow. So it's not a sitting pond of water out there. With the drainage, we've got 2 catch basins, or actually 1 catch basin and a hydrodynamic separator with a graded top at the upper area to be able to collect and drain all the stormwater runoff into the detention basin. The driveway to the east of the building, along with the existing loading dock, is going to be collected into a catch basin, put into another hydrodynamic separator, Kevin, to the southeast corner where the existing loading dock is.
Sorry.
So it's going to be over there. Thanks, Kevin. And that's going to get discharged into the detention basin, where it's going to have a outlet control structure. And from there, the water will be regulated flow across the front of the property into an existing storm culvert that will discharge the water to the south side of the Pepper Street. With the detention basin, we are meeting the Town of Monroe regulations, the 2000 Connecticut DOT Drainage Manual, and the 2004 Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual. We are having a zero increase in runoff across all storm events up to the 100-year storm. The hydrodynamic separators that I was talking about is a graded top on top of a contact CDS 15153-C. That's been part of our engineering reports previously. The part of the plan too was before that we had issues, or there was wetlands that was noticed across the street on Pepper Street. We have gone to Wetland Commission last week and got a approval to do an agent approval. We had applied to the wetland agent on Monday and got her approval on it. The plans that you have in front of you do not show the wetlands, but when we go through and address all the rest of the town staff comments, they will be shown on there. What we have here is the wetlands across Pepper Street, across the street. We do have a portion of the detention basin and the outlet control discharge pipe that's going to be within the upland review area. In the northern corner, the basin on your plans had shown to be expanded all the way to the property line. That has been pulled back, and that will be changing our drainage calculations, but we'll be submitting revised reports to the town engineer. Kevin, that wraps up my end for the moment.
That was great. Thank you, Mike. Included. So just for clarification, so as we went through the process, we initially coordinated with Denise Halstead, the wetlands agent. She actually confirmed we did not need a permit. During staff review, they had some questions about some things, so we did go, as Mike indicated, we went to wetlands. They authorized an agent approval, and this project has been approved through agent approval. We expect, as we just received staff comments, it was our goal tonight to discuss those comments with you and submit to you revised plans. Those revised plans will include that minor revision Mike mentioned up here, where we pulled this detention basin further outside of that upland review area. And again, all of the discharge points to the south along here, those have been approved by wetlands. So we will be providing a detailed response to staff comments and some revised plans, and those revised plans will include the revisions that we're showing you up on the screen right now. In addition to our site plan and grading and drainage plan, we also had a comprehensive landscape plan where we identified a number of trees and shrubs to be planted around the site. I think when the property was first purchased by A&B Mechanical, I think there may have been some questions or some concerns regarding some tall and overgrown trees which were cut down along the front of the property's frontage. We are proposing some additional trees and some additional landscaping around here to somewhat be responsive to that, to provide some additional enhanced landscaped area through here. We're going to go through staff comments, but one of the things that was mentioned by Will, which was a great suggestion, we will be able to add some additional planting kind of along the frontage here in front of this detention basin. But again, this is an above ground grass vegetated basin, so we think it'll blend well with the overall aesthetic of the site and the property. And again, we're also providing landscaping around the outdoor storage area, some tree plantings along here, and around the dumpster pad as well. So, and then in addition to our landscape plan, we've also provided a comprehensive lighting plan. We are proposing 4 light poles in the to provide adequate light levels in the back of the site. We are not proposing to modify existing lighting, or at least we weren't at this time. We'd certainly be happy to get comments from the commission, but we weren't anticipating wholesale replacement of any existing fixtures. We were hoping we'd be able to leave those as is, but we've just kind of supplemented some additional lighting to cover the parking in the rear, and then again along this new drive along the easterly side of the building, which again provides that full circulation around the facility. There was some question about a floor plan. We did have, and we will submit to staff. This is the actual floor plan that was approved and constructed as part of that 2003 expansion, where they added that office space towards the front of the building, and they added some additional space towards the rear of the building. We'll work through this with staff, but we were hoping that this would suffice and meet those requirements. So as I said, we did receive comments from staff, and we greatly appreciate those. I'll start with Scott's. I think from a drainage standpoint, I think we're actually able to pretty much address all of Scott's concerns. We received some comments from the health department, and they asked us to do some additional testing out there just to verify that there's adequate reserve area, which we can certainly do. We did some test holes for, throughout the site as part of our drainage design, and there was adequate material out there. And we think we won't have any issues addressing the health department's comments. There did seem to be some confusion about the septic activity. We're not proposing to modify the septic system whatsoever. We're not proposing to modify the use in the building. We're not proposing to modify the septic generation with the building. So we'll work with Matt Bertoli, the sanitarian, and make sure that his questions and comments are clarified and addressed, and we don't see any issues from a health department standpoint. Regarding Mr. Agresta's comments, the first comment had to do with wetlands. Again, we've actually received agent approval for this project, so I think we've been able to address that. There was some other, I guess, comments I'd like to maybe go through and review with the commission to get the commission's thoughts on how they best think we should provide a response to address these. There were some comments about the off-street parking. Traditionally and historically, we've identified office areas and areas that are more used for warehouse and use that in our parking summary. Will's looking for us to use a different definition for the office space and characterize a use that's not currently permitted in the zone. We're happy to list that, but we certainly don't want to create any zoning related issues by characterizing this in a way that would somehow be deemed non-compliant. It doesn't change the parking requirement. We have more than adequate parking spaces with our proposed expansion, but we're happy to get some feedback from the commission on how we should make those revisions. There were some comments regarding interior landscaping standards regarding for the rear parking lot. So our interpretation of the regulations, it says that landscaping for parking lots, including 50 or more off-street parking spaces, shall be designed as follows, and then it has a requirement for 10% interior landscaping. Our proposed parking area is not a 50-space parking lot. It's less than 50 spaces. So we weren't sure if we were going to be held to that standard because we aren't proposing a parking lot of greater than 50 spaces. We weren't proposing to provide interior landscape islands in this back area. We're proposing these islands to be striped end islands, really just to kind of enhance snow removal and to maximize the openness of the ability for vehicles to kind of navigate the rear parking area. But we'd be anxious to hear the commission's thoughts and interpretation for that regulation. As I mentioned before, I think we can address the health department comments, but there was a question regarding the septic activity. There are 2 containers on the property now. Now these are just storage containers. They're not refuse containers or anything like that. So these would be relocated to the outdoor storage area. But there was a comment about that outdoor storage area in that Will had referenced a section of the regulations that requires concrete bases for that. But based on our interpretation of the regulations, a concrete pad is required for refuse areas. So dumpsters or compactors, anything that would be emptied by a truck should be put on a concrete pad. We have proposed our dumpsters to be located on a concrete pad, but we were not proposing to have our outdoor storage area to be poured concrete. We are proposing to pave this area, as has been, as is consistent with other sections of the regulations. And I think it's consistent with how other outdoor storage areas have been treated in the past. Again, we would move those storage containers into that area, and we would also provide, again, those empty dumpsters would be stored there. But it would, I don't know if, we didn't think that the concrete would be required for a surface treatment for the outdoor storage area, and we'd request the commission's consideration on that. The dumpster enclosure, Will did make a good point regarding this. We did have landscaping around here. This is on a concrete pad, but we will be able to make a minor modification to provide a small landscaped island to the north of this in response to Will's comment. We're going to add some additional spots just to show how the existing handicap spaces that currently there's only one accessible space out there. We are adding some additional just because of the overall number of spaces that will be provided on the site. We want to maintain compliance. Thankfully, the grades through there are sufficient, and we can provide additional spots just to verify that that will still meet the ADA requirement. We can certainly add some additional entries for the zoning compliance table for Will's comments. There was some comment on the stormwater control basins and structures required within a landscape buffer. Now, I think the regulations allow for the commission to grant approval for us to put stormwater structures within those areas. We do have a little bit of a tight site, and we're trying to maximize what the client was looking for from an operation standpoint. So again, that's why we did take the approach of trying to provide an above ground basin along the easterly side of the property. And I think this is, you know, I'm certainly aware of other projects in town where we've had basins in similar configurations. So we'd certainly like the commission's feedback and consideration for that we would like to keep that basin there as we proposed. And we can certainly add some additional landscaping, preferably just along Pepper Street to kind of better screen that the basin in the front. And obviously we do have some good landscaping along the eastern side adjacent to another industrial building, which obviously currently exists in that location. Some additional comments on the landscape plan. You know, we didn't do a comprehensive labeling of all the plantings out there. We could certainly provide some of that. You know, we weren't trying to propose an extensive enhancement of the existing conditions that are out there, really more focusing on our proposed activity, but we'd be happy to hear commission's thoughts on our materials submitted as they're currently in front of you. The lighting plan, again, Will had made some comments on our lighting plan that he wanted us to label and identify all of the existing lighting fixtures and replace with dark sky compliant fixtures. We would simply request that the commission consider allowing us to just to maintain what's out there and really just focus on our new lighting along the rear and the side, that would all meet the dark sky compliant requirements, but the applicant wasn't looking to replace all of the lights on the property that are currently there. And we can certainly add notes about the hours of light operation and things like that. So with that, I think that essentially summarizes our proposal. It's relatively straightforward. Again, proposing a parking lot expansion behind an existing building that's existing facility, which has experienced good steady growth, and they're looking to invest in the community, invest in the town of Monroe, and expand their operations in the community. We think it's a great addition, and it's a great way to reuse the site, and we'd be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Thank you, Mr. Soley. At this point, I'd like to open this discussion up to the public, as this is a public hearing. Are there any members of the public that would like to make a general comment on this application? Hearing none, are there any members of the public that would like to make a comment in favor of this application? Hearing none, are there any members of the public that would like to make a comment in opposition to this application?
Hello?
Yes.
I would like to make a comment. Hi, this is Polly Cosmetti of, I'm sorry?
Go ahead and just identify yourself,
Hello?
name and address. Hello, just go ahead and identify yourself with your
Okay,
name. And
Polly Cosmetti, Cos Investor. Okay. Polly Cosmetti of Cos Investors, 587 Pepper Street. And I was curious because earlier you had made some reference to drainage to the property across the street. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Sure. So you can kind of see it here. So this is an aerial of the existing conditions. The current drainage from this property drains into a culvert in the south west corner of the property that drains underneath Pepper Street and discharges into a large wetland system in this location here. We are simply maintaining that same drainage pattern, and we're actually designed our system to attenuate so that we are actually matching the same rate of runoff in our proposed conditions from what is currently exists on the property. So there's actually going to be the same rate of water coming from this pipe under the proposed conditions as it does today.
Okay, well, I guess because we own that piece of property, I don't know if I like the idea of more water being drained into a piece of property that was originally told me that it was wetlands, but not really. If you say you've been dumping in water there for I don't know how long.
I think that drainage pattern has been out there since the project was originally constructed back in, I think, 1980. So that's been an existing condition that's been maintained, and it's actually pretty common that most sites discharge into wetland areas. Wetlands are kind of a natural receiver of stormwater anyways. And again, our charge with meeting the current requirements is to make sure that we're matching that same rate of runoff, and that's why we provided some additional stormwater detention on our property. But we were just matching the same, it's going to match the same as it does under existing conditions.
Oh, okay. Is there any way I can stop that?
well, it's Mrs.
Because we have a
Cosmetti.
piece of property that now is, it's not, we are trying to make it a useful piece of property as well. And this is news to me because I originally thought it was wetlands and
what Mr. Soley is saying, I think, is across the street on your property, there are wetlands. And the existing drainage in the entire area has been the same since at least the 1980s. He's not changing that. And he's not increasing the flow rate across the street. So it is not changing your property. It's not going to increase your wetlands on your property. Is that correct, Kevin?
That is, Will, and thank you for the clarification. And you can see it here. It's actually the municipal drainage that from Pepper Street. There are catch basins along there, and that drainage discharges into these wetland areas. There's actually a couple discharge points along Pepper Street, and the current drainage runs through that same location. And again, we're just matching that same rate.
Does that answer your question, Mrs. Cosmetti?
I suppose. Like again, it's news to me, unfortunately. Right.
Well, I think if you want to contact the land use staff in the planning and zoning department, they could explain it a little better to you how, theoretically, even before there were any buildings on these sites, that's the way that water drained from north to south in that area. But I think probably we'll be able to better explain that to you offline.
Okay, yes, we'll set up a meeting. That would be grateful. I would be really appreciative.
All right, thank you. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak in relation to this application? Hearing none, then I'm going to poll the commissioners. We'll start with Commissioner Ambrosi.
Kevin, I just have a couple questions for you. The outdoor storage area, what do you plan on putting on that?
So there are, he has 2 storage containers that are behind his building now. Those would be located there, and then they'd be putting dumpsters, empty dumpsters, which they'd be using as part of their mechanical operation. Again, when they have a project, they have demolition, they're rather than putting those in someone else's dumpsters, they're creating their own dumpsters, and those dumpsters would be stored on site. They would be emptied, so there'd only be the storage of empty containers, empty dumpsters on the property.
Right, so they're constantly going to be put down and remove, put down and remove, put down and remove. So you don't think putting a concrete pad would be a better solution than putting it on asphalt?
Well, we've proposed we'd recommend heavy duty asphalt in that location. To be honest, what we would prefer was that area to be a gravel or like a road-based process, because that would be easier to maintain long term with picking up and dropping dumpsters in that location. However, we know the commission is much fonder of more permanent asphalt, so we would be able to put heavy duty asphalt there, a little bit thicker road base or a little bit thicker sub base area, a little bit thicker pavement section, so that could withstand that. But we'd prefer to put asphalt rather than pouring a concrete pad. Partially cost implications, partially maintenance, things like that.
No, I understand that, but like I'm saying to you, you're constantly going to be removing those containers. So eventually the asphalt's going to deteriorate because it's not, concrete would be much better. If they were just going to sit there, I wouldn't really have that much of a problem with it. But since they're being moved all the time, I think it's more benefit to them really to put a concrete pad there. That's my opinion. The other question I have is, what kind of trucks are you going to store next to that?
So they have a bucket truck. They have, actually, I think did we list these on here, Mike? Do we have a list of the vehicles that he'd have out there?
I think I forgot to include that, but there was. Yeah. We had a bucket truck, a flatbed, the truck for the dumpster, the hook truck for the dumpsters. Yeah, those were the types of trucks that I've written down. As just a larger box truck, flatbed, the hook truck for the dumpsters, and the bucket trucks.
You said dump trucks?
The hook truck to be able to move the dumpsters from site to site.
Yeah, not a dump truck, but a truck to actually pick up and move the dumpsters.
That's probably, you mean a hook truck.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
So you're going to put all those. You're going to put what equipment you're gonna store on the property?
Yeah, we can certainly provide that detailed list. I thought we had put that on there, but we can add that additional detail.
Okay, then now you plan on paving that whole parking lot, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So you don't think by putting some islands in there and stuff and because you could turn that into a massive parking lot with no islands in it, right?
That's certainly not the intent.
No,
we're proposing to stripe this area.
We understand that I understand it's not the intent, but I'm saying that you could turn it into a massive parking area because you don't have anything to break it up. And so you don't think putting some islands in there with just to break it up so that we can prevent that from happening? Trees or whatever to prevent that, because that's a massive, that could turn into be a massive parking lot. And I'm not only saying for his business, but it's gonna go with the property forever. Even if he sells that property or sells that business, they can end up turning that into, like, I don't know how many spaces you can put on there, but I can imagine you can put a lot of spaces in there, right?
It's actually not as big as it seems, and we did provide kind of some extra room for circulation, but certainly they could certainly squeeze in some cars out there. We can certainly review with the client about adding some additional islands. If the commission feels strongly about that.
Well, no, that's
we can certainly make.
I don't know what everybody else thinks. I'm just saying that it could turn into that. That's the concerns that I have. I think that's probably good for me, Mike.
Thank you. Commissioner Maini?
How are you, Kev?
I'm good, Commissioner Maini.
You said you are going to not touch the lighting in the front, correct?
That was the intent.
Now, are they dark sky compliant currently?
I'm not sure the existing lights or lighting fixtures. We haven't done a deep dive of that. We were simply trying to, kind of maintain what was out there and focus on the proposed parking lot.
How many light towers are there now out in the front?
I don't think very many, perhaps 2.
Is that a huge cost to make them dark sky compliant? Considering that you're going to be adding lighting to the back?
It may actually be mostly wall mounted fixtures. I'm just looking at some pictures. I'm not even sure if there's actually pole lights out there. Again, I know there's wall packs along the front of the building. We could certainly review it with the client and see if their opinion on replacing additional light fixtures. But
I don't know. I just think if you're doing a lighting in the back, probably might not be a terrible idea to comply in the front. That's just my opinion. I don't know what the rest of the commission feels. With what Leon said, the fact that you are going to pick up these dumpsters quite frequently probably would be. Normally, I wouldn't be in. Normally, I wouldn't disagree with you on that if you're having kind of stationary dumpsters. But if they're going to be moving a lot, I kind of agree with Leon that concrete pad is probably better long-term. A long-term solution than the asphalt. That's just that's how I feel. And that's pretty. I'm just the lighting and the concrete pad were my only 2 concerns. That's all. Thank you.
Commissioner Condon?
What's in the 2 storage containers?
I think it's probably just equipment that they use that isn't stored inside, but it's all related to the mechanical business.
All right, and those are going to stay over on the potential concrete pad or pavement pad.
Yes, per Will's comment, that they'll either be removed or located in that storage area.
All right, that's it. Thanks.
Commissioner Westland.
All right, I think it's great that we have a local business thriving and expanding, particularly during these challenging times. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for a concrete pad back under those containers. I think that's perfectly reasonable, as the asphalt is certainly going to deteriorate over time, and it's going to see a lot of use. There's going to be things dragging on it, extra weight, and what have you. I don't think we need to be dealing with the existing lighting at this point. And also, as far as the islands are concerned, they pose inherent problems with dealing with the snow in the winter and possibly with drainage. So I do realize that it adds the possibility of adding unwanted parking back there. I just think from an operator standpoint, it's extra challenges that don't need to be dealt with. So other than just a concrete pad, I'm good with the rest of it.
Okay. Commissioner Schneider.
I really don't have any questions. The beauty of going last is everything gets taken care of before it gets to me, but I kind of agree with everybody, especially Rob. Although the islands would look nice, I didn't even think about the water, so that makes sense. The concrete slab I agree with just because of the weight. If that's the only part that you have to do, I think that's fine. Yeah, there's really nothing.
Commissioner Panici.
I think they addressed everything that needs to be addressed. I think the islands, even though there's concern from the commissioners, with this operation, it might be better off leaving as it is, maneuvering large trucks back there. Any other time, yes, the islands will be better. One other, are they increasing manpower capacity to need this additional parking?
Well, they've had some pretty good sustained growth, and that would continue. This kind of helps reinforce that and allow for that to continue.
Is your operation a daily operation like 7 to 5 or 7 to 6, or is it a night operation also?
No, it's primarily during normal daytime hours.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Agresta?
Yeah.
Do you have any further questions or comments?
With regards to the landscape buffer in the front yard, Kevin, you're correct. The commission can allow an alternative buffer plan, but there are a few other standards that you have to comply with as well. So when you do your responses, if you look back at that section and show how you're complying with the various standards, plus how you promote your alternative buffer, that would help the commission make those decisions as you see fit. Outdoor storage. With regards to the parking standard, the use is what it should be, which is a contractor's building trade establishment. As far as any zoning issue, that hopefully we've taken care of in a short time. But the use is what it is, and that is what it's defined under zoning. So we shouldn't pretend it's something else. I don't think it's going to affect you from a parking standpoint. You have obviously plenty of room and places for parking to meet the standard. I think you addressed pretty much everything else.
All right, thank you. Well, before we go back to Mr. Soley, I like the dark sky compliant fixtures. Can you, when you do come back to us, just let us know what's there already? I'm not big on putting islands in the parking lot either. or the concrete pad, but it looks like preponderance of the commissioners would like to see a concrete pad. So I'll take it back to you, Mr. Solly.
Well, no, I appreciate everybody's comments and feedback. We greatly appreciate it. What we'll do is we'll kind of review all of this discussion with our client, and we'll be preparing some revised plans in response to staff's comments in the discussion here this evening. I would say I'm certainly aware of, I know that I think the last project that I saw that had outdoor storage area that was actually housing dumpsters was, I think, at 17 Enterprise Drive, and that area was approved as asphalt. I don't think it was required to do a concrete pad in that specific application, which was very comparable. But I will review it with our client and see if they'd be willing to put in that concrete pad. It's about a 2,500 square foot concrete pad, so it's not a small area, but we can certainly review that with them, and we'll have that for the next meeting. I know the commission meets on the 22nd, so I think we'd have to have our responses in by the Tuesday, October 13th. We can certainly agree to make that deadline, and we understand that if we miss it even by a day, we'll be continued to the first meeting in November. So we will plan on getting that in. We'd love to have this hearing continued and hopefully closed out on the 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. Solly. We're going to adjourn this hearing and keep it open until the 22nd. Okay, so yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The next item on the agenda is a site development plan, SDP 2020-02, file number 141, 537 Monroe Turnpike. This is an SEP site plan development to change of use in the former CVS store to a liquor store. Will, do we have exhibits for this?
Yes, we do. Exhibit 1, application materials and notification to Aquarian and DPH. Exhibit 2, site plan. Exhibit 3, ART town engineer comments. Exhibit 4, ART planning and zoning comments. And Exhibit 5, ART health department comments. That's all.
Thank you. And for the applicant, do we have Mr.
Riley? Yeah,
Bjork?
Dave Bjork.
Dave, okay, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. This is an application to occupy some of the space that was formerly utilized by CVS Pharmacy at the Century Plaza, which is commonly known by a lot of people as the Big Y Plaza on Route 111. CVS moved out several years ago and moved down the street into a freestanding facility. Since then, the owner of the property, the Sippin family, has been trying to find a tenant to occupy this space. And what we're here this evening to request from the commission is that we want to utilize approximately 4,550 feet of that. The former space was 8,775 feet, and utilize this as a liquor store. It's going to utilize the same entry and front door as the CVS Pharmacy utilized. We are going to be adding a back door for access to a loading area and a dumpster for the liquor store. The remaining 4,225 square feet we don't have a user for at this point in time, but we anticipate that that might, hopefully we could lease that to one user, but that could be split up into multiple spaces at some point in the future. We'd have to add a storefront in that area, probably some canopies, and some entryways. So we'd rather not address that this evening because we don't know what's going to go into that space. But we do know that we are going to utilize the existing front door in that area for a liquor store. Looking at the staff comments, Scott had a comment to the dumpster enclosure should be shifted to the east side of the proposed loading door in order to provide adequate loading space and access. We think that that's a good comment, and we're willing to abide by that. The health department, there's no reason to comment on that. It's a retail. It was formerly, the septic system was sized for a retail use, and this is also going to be a retail use. So there's no issues with the septic system. With regards to Will's comments, we are revising the data accumulation plan. Those changes will be made and will be ready for the commission's next meeting. We should have no problem getting that in by the October 13th deadline. And the site plan modifications show the ending sidewalk prior to the existing building at the former CVS. That's not an issue. 1 story, that's not an issue. In relation to the remaining vacant retail space, show where the new front access door will be added to the existing sidewalk and show the existing rear door. That's what I just addressed. We'd rather not show how we're going to utilize the area that's going to remain vacant, because as we've discussed it, like I just said, we're going to have to add a storefront. There's no windows there. We may have multiple doors. We may have multiple entryways into the building. There is an existing sidewalk there, and there's existing landscaping that we're going to have to address. And we'll be back to the commission, and we'll be back to ARB to do those modifications to the space that's going to remain vacant.
Hey, Dave, can you just add a notation to that effect?
Pardon?
To address that, why don't we just add some kind of note like that that says it on the plan that that's what will happen?
Okay. I think that's a great way to handle it. With regards to the parking, when this was done back in 1993 under your older regulations, we required 357 spaces. We have taken a look. There currently are 356 spaces there. There was a loss of spaces as a result of 3 spaces were lost due to the cart storage areas that they have installed pretty much in the middle of the parking lot, and then they have another one. 4 spaces were lost. There's another one on the north side of the building that occupies a parking space. Regards to the actual building size, we're checking into that. We're going to compute what the actual site survey showed, because there is a difference between the original plans, the assessors, and we'll see what's actually on the ground. With regards to the parking calculations based upon your new regulations that were developed in 2013, there were, under your new regulations, there are 372 spaces required. There were, as I said, there are 356 spaces on site. Your regulations indicate that one of the intents of the regulations is to not increase impervious area. I think that, I think probably a lot of us are very familiar with the Big Y development. I don't think there are any parking issues there. I utilize the facility regularly. I don't think there's a shortage of parking that is there. And I think as the parking lot was originally designed, it operates quite nicely. So that with regards to the parking spaces.
David,
Signage.
David, can I interrupt you? I think we can handle this with note at the bottom of the table as well. The point is we should do the calculations. We can show both if you want historically and what this is, but the new zoning regulations in a way did make it non-conforming. And I think the biggest differences were because of the way restaurants used to be calculated. They were way under counted. And when this center was built, I don't think they had any contribution to the number of spaces. And I agree with you, it's certainly not underparked from a usage standpoint, and that maybe a center of this size could have at some day we might have a separate standard just for something like this. But I think we still should document what it is, and we can end it with a pre-existing kind of notation, so it's not a negative to the, it's not saying you have to add spaces or anything. So
Right. Okay, I think that's a good idea. And that will explain what the difference is if anybody looks at it in the future. With regards to signage, we have submitted applications. Those can't be acted on until this application is approved, but they have been submitted. I don't know if there's, and with regards to removing the Peach Wave sign and the Litchfield Laser Skincare sign, that'll be taken care of. There is no proposed change in the exterior lighting. It's going to be utilizing the existing parking lot, so there will be no changes as far as that goes. I'll be glad to answer any questions that any of the commission members may have with regards to this.
Thank you, Mr. Bjorklund. So Will, do we do public participation in site development plans?
that's up to you at your discretion. This is not a public hearing per se, but if you want to collect any public opinion, that's up to you.
All right, are there any members of the public that would like to comment on this application? Any members of the public like to comment on this application? If not, then I'll poll the commissioners. Commissioner Panici.
I have no comment. Everything seems to be okay. I have no comment.
Commissioner Schneider.
The only question I have is this owner realized that there's liquor sold out of Big Y, a liquor store across the street, and a liquor store about 200 feet down the road?
The proposed operator of the liquor store is well aware of the liquor store situation in the town of Monroe.
That's it. I don't know how many liquor stores we need, but I'm just making the comment, that's all.
I think we're allowed 7 liquor stores in the town of Monroe, but I don't think there's a regulation as to where they're located.
Yeah, this does not change the number of liquor stores. In fact, this is just a relocation from their existing store on Main Street. So they're going to vacate Main Street location, move here. At the moment, there is one, I believe, open license available for a liquor store in Monroe. If you recall, we never had any standards that I'm aware of distances between liquor stores, or we used to have a standard of 1,500 feet. That you abolished not last year.
Anything else, Commissioner Schneider?
No, I'm sorry, I said no. Nothing.
Commissioner Westland?
I have no questions.
Commissioner Ambrosi?
No questions.
Commissioner Condon?
No questions.
Commissioner Mayini?
I don't have any questions.
I have no questions either. So then we'll back to you, Mr. Bjorklund.
To sum it up, we'll make the modifications that Will suggested, and we'll have that information back to the commission by the 13th, and we'll meet again on the 22nd. And hopefully we can wrap this up at that point in time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bjorklund. Then we will adjourn this hearing, but not close it.
Thank you very much.
Moving right along, we have bond release number 12 on the agenda. Let's see, this is SEP 2014-01, file 1536A, 1428 Monroe Turnpike. This is the Stone Castle of a request for a release of the $13,000 bond. I have a letter from, I have a bond release report from the town engineer that is recommending the release of the $13,000 bond. Chair will entertain a motion to release the bond.
I'll make a motion for a bond release SEP-2014-01, file number 1536A at 1428 Monroe Turnpike.
Second.
I have a motion, we have a second. We'll call the roll. Commissioner Maini?
Yes.
Commissioner Condon?
Yes.
Commissioner Ambrosi?
Yes.
Commissioner Westland?
Westland, yes.
And O'Reilly, yes. Okay, Will, you got that?
Yes, I do.
Second bond release is SUB 2019-01, file number 1265C, and EFP 2019-01, file number 102E. I have a request for a bond release of a surety bond of $20,000. In discussion with staff and the town engineer, it was recommended not to release the bond in entirety, but to decrease the bond to a $7,000 cash bond, since there are still some outstanding issues.
Mr. Chairman, that was to release $7,000, leaving a $13,000 cash bond.
Rick, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
I thought it was to release $13,000 and leave $7,000 cash bond.
The applicant called me after reviewing the recommendation and thought that a third should be retained, which should be $7,000. It's the commission's call on this one. That's the applicant's recommendation. He's replacing the surety bond with the cash bond.
Of $7,000, correct?
That's the applicant's recommendation.
All right, so we're looking at a reduction of the surety, a release of the surety bond and a call for a $7,000 cash bond. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So the chair is looking for a motion.
You want a motion, but are we in agreement with what we're motioning for?
Well, we can discuss that after the motion is, before we vote, we'll discuss that.
All right.
I'll make a motion for a partial bond release SUB-2019-01, file number 1265C, and EFP 2019-01, file 102E.
Ambrosi, second.
I have a motion and I have a second. That's discussion. Go ahead, Bruno.
I mean, we have conflicting reports here. Staff is asking for a $7,000 release and the occupant wants to $13,000 release. So we need to come to sort of agreement. It's obvious there's an agreement that there should be a release, which is fine, but what's the number?
Bruno, I think at this point,
what's the total bond right now? 20,000?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, would it make sense just to split it in half?
I don't know. He has a long list of stuff. Did you look into what Scott wrote up here? He has like 8 items that he didn't finish.
Could items be finished with $10,000?
Well, I don't know because there's a lot of stuff on here. Existing guardrail anchor system needs to be removed. There's a bunch of stuff that needs to be on here. So
I understand. They're talking about releasing at least a minimum of 7,000.
Right, and I think
he wants 13,000. I'm just trying to meet in the middle, just to kind of appease both sides.
Well, he actually wants 20,000.
Well, obviously that's but
he came back and said that I believe 7,000, a cash bond of 7,000 would be something that he would agree to.
I think that's fair.
Without the town engineer being here, I mean, I wouldn't be able to tell you if that's enough money or not.
Well, the
What's
engineer's
that?
recommendation spells out the individual line items of what he's estimating. So he's giving you a detailed estimate.
It spells it out on here how much it's going to be.
Yeah, if you look at his amended recommendation, under each of the items that are outstanding, he gives you individual prices.
Yeah. When was that sent to me?
It was probably sent yesterday or today, because when the initial recommendation was made, the applicant had not done a fair amount of things, and he was trying to get some of it done before October 1st. So we were talking to him over the last 10 days.
Yeah.
And when the recommendation came out that there would be no recommendation for release because he really didn't do the work he was supposed to do, he then saw that that was going to probably be a no-go. And then he pleaded for, can he at least get some release? Scott relooked at it and acknowledged, okay, we can give you some credit for some of the work you've done. And that's what he came up with, the amended recommendation.
Okay, does anybody else have that list?
Yeah, it was sent out. I have it at the bottom of the list online. It's
So let's go. I have to go online and find it because I didn't see it. But anyway, can somebody, Will, could you spell it out for us, what each item is?
Well, it's the same list that you
Yeah,
had
but I
in
want
your
to
first
know the
report.
amount, so you can figure out the amounts, right?
Well, he has a 3,000 cost, a 2,600 cost, a 500 cost, a 1,500 cost. Then he has a bunch of things which are just things he has to correct that he doesn't have any costs for, but there
Yeah.
would be costs with them. And then he has another $300 cost, and then he has a $5,000 certification cost, plus 10% contingency. That's how he gets to 13,000. In fact, he actually got it to 13,900. He rounded it down to 13, being even nicer.
All right, let's hear from the rest of the commission members and see what they want to do.
all right. Let me see where we are here. Commissioner Maini.
I think we should split the bond. I'm with 10,000. 10,000.
Commissioner Condon.
I'd want to only release 7,000.
Commissioner Westland.
I think we should follow staff's recommendations as well.
All right, so then that's a reduction of the bond to 13,000.
Correct.
Okay. So any other discussion? If not, I'll call the roll.
Well, hold on a
This-
second. You didn't say anything, and Leon didn't say anything.
No, I'm agreeing. Go ahead, Mike.
Leon?
No, I'm agreeing to keep it at 7,000, Bruno, because there's just too many items here. If there wasn't that many items, I'd agree with you and cut it in half, but there's too many items here.
Well, I thought that at 13,000, that a $7,000 cash bond was just as significant as a $13,000 surety bond, since that's his own cash money that he's putting up, correct, Will?
No,
Versus-
they're both equal. They're worth the same amount of money. 13,000 cash bond is the same as a $13,000 surety bond. It's just a different format.
All right, then it seems like we're going to go with the 13,000. Is that correct?
We're gonna release 7,000.
Yes, we want to release 7.
And remaining bond will be 13,000.
And
Yes.
we'll leave the form of bond up to him.
Okay. All right, we'll call the roll then. Mayini,
No.
Condon,
Yes.
Ambrosi,
Yes.
Westland,
Westland, yes.
and O'Reilly, no.
Okay, motion carries 3-2.
Thank you. Number 13 on the agenda is pending meeting minutes. So you should all have the meeting minutes of September 17, 2020 Planning and Zoning Commission. The chair will entertain a motion to accept the pending minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept the pending meeting minutes from September 17th.
I have a motion, need a second.
Second.
Have a motion, do we have a second? Are there any changes on the minutes that anyone has noticed? Corrections? If not, we'll call the roll. Westland,
Westland, yes.
Ambrosi,
Yes.
Condon,
Yes.
Mayini,
Yes.
O'Reilly, yes. We don't have any pending applications or deliberations from this meeting as the public hearing was left open. We do have other business, however. I think you all have a copy of the draft zoning regulations text amendment, which is marked pre-draft, I think, but I think this is going to be an actual draft. So what we did was, if you go to page wait a minute, what page is it on? Page 3. Under location. I'd just like to preface this a little bit by, as we all saw, there was a presentation today about apartments in Monroe. And I hope you all got the gist of the matter, that they're going to do this whether we like it or not. And that if we want to have any say on the matter, we have to engage the applicants. This language that we're putting in here is something that we would we've worked on now for over a year. I think that this is a reasonable language, and this is a reasonable first start to allowing limited apartments in Monroe. One of the reasons that the previous applicant said that they were going to do this, whether we like it or not, is because this was never addressed by the Planning and Zoning Commission in years gone by. That's all I want to say about that. On the location, we have 3 alternative scenarios. Again, this is the language that allows mixed use. It allows apartments along with commercial development. There must be commercial development at a 50% ratio. We've limited the size of the apartments to 1 bedroom with 10% 2-bedroom. And we're now limiting the location to these 3 scenarios. First is the most restrictive, which would be south of the intersection of Main Street and Judd Road. Now, this is an estimate of 145 units. If every single property owner and every undeveloped piece of property on this route was developed to the full extent of the language that we're allowing, there would be 145 units. If we move up to Knollwood, which I think now includes the senior housing, there would be 116 total units. And if we move up to Cary Hill Road, which I believe includes the Stepney area, it would be 190 units. Now, this does not include the 49 units of affordable housing. Sorry. So I'd like to open this up to discussion amongst the commissioners. I'm going to call the roll initially. So Commissioner Maini, you're first. Any comments?
No, I don't have any comments.
Where would you like to see the dividing line on Route 25? In phase 1. Now, this is also a phased development, a phased, not development, but a phased text amendment.
Right. I'm still in favor of seeing numbers for Knollwood.
160.
Yeah.
What did you want to see?
We're talking about mixed use, correct?
Right. And how far north on Route 25 we want to allow it for the first phase?
I'm still in favor of Knollwood not going.
Oh, up to Knollwood. Okay. So that's up to Knollwood.
Correct.
Okay. Commissioner Condon?
I just have a question. The numbers you had read, you said undeveloped land. So does that not include developed land? Was that actually undeveloped?
That includes all potential developable land.
Because ideally with this, they could redevelop an already, built out property to, or I guess change it. So as long as those are the full numbers, I'd be okay with Knollwood.
Ryan, the numbers are good numbers as far as estimating based on existing development, available land, and potential possible septic relationships.
To the best, I know it's not a hard number.
Yeah, there's no way to.
I got that. Thank you, and thank you guys for doing that too. But yeah, I like the idea of going out to Knollwood. I think it brings in kind of the properties, the different properties that could potentially be benefited by this. So that's where I stand.
Thank you, Commissioner Ambrosi.
Yeah, I agree with Nola too. And I don't have any other questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Westland.
As I earlier stated, in past meetings, I mean, south of the intersection of Main Street and Judd Road was my initial thoughts, and then we discussed bringing that up to Knollwood, which would include Chuck's Corner, across from Chuck's Corner, and some of those other shopping centers, which have some illegal uses at this point. So I'm good with Knollwood.
Thank you. Commissioner Schneider.
I agree. Knollwood. No other questions.
And Commissioner Panici.
So you mentioned before something about Stepney area. Does that not include the Stepney area?
That does not include Stepney area. Knollwood is just south of Stepney, near where the water company has the reservoir.
Doesn't the town benefit more with that Stepney area, the mixed use type of development?
Well, that was my opinion, but looks like many of the other commissioners don't agree with that.
My problem is that it's a historic district, Dominic, and I feel that it's fragile in that respect, and I'd rather not disturb it.
I agree with you, and I live around that area. With a Monroe muffler, not a district type of a business, we have other business. Yes, the park is historical, but people living and walking within that area really would benefit. Just something to think about. That's all I have to say.
We could always expand that at a later date. Just right now, we're not looking into that.
Well, that's correct. The plan is that this will be the first phase and it will be expanded at a later date.
It could be expanded at a later date, right? We don't have to expand it at a later date.
We do not have to expand it. It could
No,
be.
we're not putting, correct. We're not putting the timeline on this at all.
Yeah, basically we're, dipping our toe in the water to see how this turns out.
Correct. Now, there's one other item that it was not put into the text amendment. I don't think it's in there. We did speak about allowing limited ground floor apartments, limited to the behind the ground floor commercial area, because we felt that perhaps for handicapped people or elderly people who might not want to do stairs, we would allow a limited number of ground floor apartments limited to the rear of the development.
Is there a pre-existing site in town now that we could reference for an example?
No, there aren't any in town. I'm not sure about the one in I don't think, well, the one in Trumbull, the one just by where Marissa's was.
Yes.
I think they have ground floor, but I'm not sure. Do you know that, Will?
You mean not the Marissa one? You mean the one down the street from Marissa?
Not the Marissa's, right?
Yeah, I don't believe they're on the ground. I believe the access is on the ground, but the apartments are upstairs. The access is in the back.
All right. Any other comments on potential ground floor apartments? So the next thing I would like to do is to move this to a public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, does that mean we're not changing anything relative to ground floor?
Well, no, I would like to add may allow limited ground floor apartments.
So we need to talk that out a little bit of what you all think that is and how I could write that in here. I mean, I could write it in here, but the word limited, I'm not sure what that means, but.
What do you mean by ground floor apartments? I thought we discussed that.
Ground floor apartments are accessible from the ground floor.
Correct.
No,
I
Mr.
thought we
Chairman,
discussed that we weren't doing that.
you're talking about units that are on the ground floor, not just accessible, but
I'm
are.
sorry.
All the apartments need to be accessible from the ground floor. You can't get into them.
Right. So these would be apartments that are on the ground floor, behind the commercial use, in other words.
I don't know if I like that idea.
I'm not in favor of that.
I wish I had an example to extrapolate from, because we don't have anything in town now that I can even envision.
Are you talking something like Bart Center? Like we're in the back side of Bart Center, that they would put maybe ground floor apartments there?
Potentially.
But I'm just talking about that. I know we're not going that far up 25, but I'm talking about that as an example of a building that could potentially. Is that something you're talking about?
Yeah,
because
that could be a good example, because it's not visible from the front and it would be accessible from behind.
My concern is you're losing.
If we write a regulation like that, I'm a little bit more in favor of where it's not visible from the front, and you could have a ground floor apartment in the back.
Right. It would still be limited to 50% of the square footage of the
building.
Project of the building. So they couldn't go above the 50%.
Right, but I'm just not liking the whole ground floor apartment. I'm just not in favor of the ground floor apartment.
I'm with you, Bruno.
And
Thanks,
I
Rob.
thought if we were
glad
going
we
to
agreed on something tonight.
No, but I thought when we talked about this, I thought anything that we were going to do on the ground floor was going to be behind the building.
That would make more sense to me.
Right. So I think that's what I think we discussed, and I think what everybody else is having a problem with is that if it was going to be like, say, if it did go up there and like in Bart Center and it was behind there, I mean, if it's behind the building, it's not in front of the building. I don't really think that I have an issue with it if it's behind the building, because you're not going to see it anyway. It's going to have its own separate entrance, and it's not going to be, in front of the building. I mean, the front of the building has to be retail, and behind it would be an apartment if you put it behind it, but it has to be behind the building. That's my opinion.
No, I don't, like I said before, I just don't like the ground floor apartment visible from the road. If it's something in the back, like in Bart Center, for example, I know we're not going that far up 25, but as an example, if it's in the back side of something like that, I don't see what the difference is. I'm not in favor of the ground floor street visible apartment.
And I don't think for phase one, it should be a part of ground floor, should be a part of phase one.
I also agree with that, because there's so much to floor anyway.
The phasing is just going to be geographic limitations.
Yes, but we could always add to the regulation also, if needed.
We could change phase one, right?
They get added to and changed all the time.
Only in Monroe.
Ryan, where do you stand on that now, Ryan?
My concern is just that, if we have a piece of property and the incentive is for someone to build a certain amount of square footage on the first floor of business, and then the second floor would be apartments. If we let them split that bottom floor in half, you're losing, half of your capacity now of that building if they're just going to keep it at one floor to the residential. Am I wrong there in that thinking?
No, you're right.
No, we would still they would still be limited to 50% of the square footage. It has to be commercial.
Yeah, but you get what I'm saying though, is if it was 2 floors and we tell them they can only do the apartments on the 2nd floor, yes, maybe they only build the business so it's that half of the size that they were going to, but I feel like we're limiting the ability for the commercial. I don't know. I feel like we're encroaching too much on the commercial aspect of the mixed use by allowing ground floor.
The only issue that I have is if for some reason we have a handicapped person that wants to live in an apartment, we are basically preventing them from living in an apartment because they would have to go up the steps. And if we're trying to keep people here in this town, and we have handicapped people that are in town, we have to give them somewhere. Like if we were going to do this, I mean, I think we should have some kind of way to let some handicapped people take a ground floor apartment, at least if it's behind the building where it's not in front of the building. That's my only concern, because I just don't want to cut those people out of this regulation.
I mean, the building code does regulate that at certain densities.
So does that mean you required handicap accessible 2nd floor apartments?
It's about, based on certain densities, then they have to have certain provisions for ADA compliance, and it changes. I forget exactly what it is, but there's two levels of ADA compliance that you hit as you go up in density.
Ron, do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't know how many, what is the regulation for the handicap? I don't know how many of the handicapped people we're going to be getting in these apartments.
Well, the number of handicaps shouldn't be the concern. It should be the fact that if we can service one handicapped person,
we can service them all.
I
like the 2nd floor. I'm not really fond of the 1st floor. The whole time we've been talking about this since the beginning, I've never even thought about a door on the bottom walk-in.
So you're not in favor of a backside of a building where you couldn't see it from the road?
Yeah, I could do that. But could we stipulate that, but it's not in the front and it's only in the back? And
yeah, of course that could be.
Yeah, we can put that in the regulation.
I think that would clear up a lot of these issues of handicap, maybe a 1st floor apartment where a commercial person wouldn't want to go into, right? It's, I'm not the greatest businessman, but there are some things I did learn, and visibility is one of them. And the more visible you are as a business, the better opportunity you have of attracting customers. And if you're on the backside of a building that's facing wetlands, I don't know how much visibility you have other than a sign on the side of a building. So I just truly feel if you're going to put something on the ground floor and it's on the backside of a building, I don't know. I could kind of have an apartment there and maybe sacrifice a commercial building or a commercial business on a backside facing wetlands or something, or a backside that's not street visible.
Well, it might also compromise your front-facing retail because he's not going all the way to the back.
What do you mean?
Well, you could have a retail store, the first 2/3 or a half of the building, and the last half be the apartment. So you have less commercial overall. That's what Ryan, I think, was suggesting, is that you start forcing things further down on the ground because people don't want to build the 2nd floor or something. You
still have to follow the 50% rule.
Well, no, I know, but if you got a 10,000, right, of what? If you had a 10,000 square foot building potential and you only build 5, well, you only got 2,500.
Look at the old Goodwill that we turned into a liquor store. If you look at that, right now it's 1 floor. Right now it's real estate. It's all it's commercial. If this were allowed there, they could build a 2nd floor on top of that and make it apartments. If we were to allow the ground floor, instead of building a 2nd floor and making apartments, they could push the liquor store to the front of their building, put a wall up, and turn the back end into apartments. So all of a sudden you're losing. So yes, it's 50% of what they're using, but you've just lost 50% of that bit of the business aspect to residential. That's my concern.
Correct.
Yeah, do. I mean, I get that.
But that's also got to be financially feasible for the person to do something like that.
Of course it is. You don't have to build a second floor. It's way cheaper. A wall versus a whole second story?
A loss of business over a rent?
Well, if it hasn't been rented in a decade, they're going to do whatever to occupy it.
It's fully occupied right now. That one specific place you're talking about. It's fully occupied.
You have other buildings. I'm just thinking of a nice
Of course you have other buildings. I mean, of course you do. But again, they would be facing backside. He could also split that and make 2 commercial buildings if he wanted. What if he put a wall up and he put another commercial business in on the other half? Would we complain about that?
He's doing part of that now. Well, it's still all commercial though, Bruno. That's the point.
It's all commercial.
I understand, but he could. The commercial aspect is going to make him more money than a residential aspect.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
But sometimes it's easier to attract residential than it is to attract commercial.
Absolutely.
When we were talking about the numbers of how many up till Knollwood that we can, have we even got those numbers yet?
Yeah.
160 units.
It was said earlier on.
Well, we've been saying that for weeks now. Can we get the numbers? Can we get the numbers? But if the numbers,
Ron, the numbers are 160 that were talked about at the beginning of talking about mixed use.
Did they include the first floor?
No, this is under the current regulation that's drafted, which is 50% second floor.
And if we did this in the first one, just second floor, can we add first later?
You can do anything you want.
Yeah.
Dominic, do you want to chime in on this? We haven't heard from you.
I believe in mixed use. I believe in regulating somehow. When you go too far, then it makes it hard all around. So be careful how much you restrict. So I could tell you.
But based on this, see them turning this into a touchdown. Believe that.
So I'm not really getting a consensus here on the ground floor in the back yet.
I don't think I like it as much.
I don't like it either.
Yeah, I'm against ground, clearly.
That's 3 no's.
We're already on it.
And Bruno was, what was Bruno, a yes or a no?
He was a yes. It was pretty obvious.
Yes.
I thought he was leaning no.
He was
so it's
mixed.
kind of split.
What's that?
I just have a question. I have a question to Will. If we're doing mixed use and it's only 2 stories and there's no elevator, aren't they mandated to have a certain number of handicap?
It all depends, I think, on how many units. I did get some of that information from the building chief building inspector. I would have to pull that back out, but it isn't going to be for every development. I think it hits a certain number of units. They start requiring different levels of ADA access.
You're asking for a lawsuit from people in the handicap area because you're gonna start saying that you're gonna build this project, but you are not allowed to come in here.
Well, that's not true.
We build 2-story houses that aren't handicap accessible on the second floor.
Right.
The building code would kick in at a certain level, and they'd be obliged by complying. A builder can also comply on his own if that's what he wants to do. I mean, he can put in an elevator if he so chooses.
And you're not eliminating the handicap from the town of Monroe. You're eliminating them from the mixed use segment of our housing.
under a certain density. If it hits a certain density, they're included too.
Correct.
You're technically not eliminating them.
Just a point of order.
But I'll just be clear on my end. I am not in favor for first floor apartments, just so we're clear.
Okay.
All right, so then let's see. Rob, Ryan, and Bruno are not in favor. Ron, where were you on that?
I'm not either.
All right, then it looks like we're not going to put that in. That's the majority. Correct, Will?
That's what I'm hearing.
Okay. But
You had-
otherwise,
You had one other issue, I thought, Mike, that you wanted to bring up with regards to apartment maximum size.
Oh, all right, yes, we were talking about maximum size.
That's on page 5, item D.
So if you all looked over the literature that was provided to us on apartment sizes, it seems that the 1,000 square foot is a little bit on the small side for an apartment. What we were looking at with other interested applicants was more of an apartment on the 1,200 square foot side. And if you look around, most of the apartments, new construction coming in now are high-end apartments. Most of the apartments that are being built now in Connecticut are luxury apartments, other than the low income or the affordables, which are around 1,200 for the 2-bedroom apartments. So not wanting to go that far, we thought maybe, what did we think, 1,150 or 1,100, Will?
That's what you and Leon were suggesting.
Yeah, it was 1,150 as an upper limit for a 2-bedroom apartment, which is more in line with what's being built these days.
Well, I don't know, that's actually true.
That's a big 1-bedroom.
If you look at the literature that you handed us, Will, it seems to be.
The stuff the links that I sent you?
Yeah, the Harvard study.
Okay. Because there's been a decrease in apartment size over the last 10 years and an increase in its cost.
Yeah, that's what I got out of that literature.
When you're discussing 1,200 square feet and 1,150, you're not really changing much. 50 square feet is really not much at all. I still think 1,000 square feet is a great number to be at. These are apartments, and that's where my heart is. So I'm at 1,000 square feet.
I'm with Bruno.
Yeah, I think 1,000 is plenty.
You figure
You
20,
have
but
houses. You have, by the way, guys, there's houses in certain towns that are less than 1,000 square feet.
if you're living room, the room that's 20 by 20 is huge. That's 400 square feet. A bedroom 15 by 15 is 300 square feet. That's huge. That's 700 square feet. Then you got a kitchen and a bath.
Hence, 1,000 square feet is perfect.
And that's
ranches are 1,000
room in an apartment. That's huge.
This is a 2-bedroom apartment we're talking about.
2-bedroom.
Oh, they are
2-bedroom
Well,
apartment.
it could be a 1-bedroom or a studio. We're not limiting the type of unit, the size.
I'm still at 1,000. However you want to, whatever numbers you want to break it down to, whatever you guys want to talk about, I'm still at 1,000.
Yeah. I think 12's too big. I mean, like Bruno said, 50, 100. We're talking, if we want to calculate it down to maybe I'd go to 11, but 1,000 is, I think, good enough.
Well, in the subcommittee meeting, Leon and I thought 1,100 was in the middle there between 1,000 and 12, so that we settled on 1,100 as a recommendation.
I like 1,000.
That's a 10 by 10 room, right?
That's 100.
10 by 10's 100.
Yeah, it's an 11 by 10 room.
That's what I'm saying. That's an extra bedroom, that extra 100.
Yeah.
But what was more in front of us was a lot of people now work from home, and one would be their office space, and one would be their bedroom. It
See,
would
that's
make
gonna
an
be a,
office.
that's gonna be a problem now, because your regulations require, set off that office space, if included, would be counted as a bedroom.
Right, that's what he's saying.
In front of us, that's why we decided to go with 1100 because of that reasoning, because a lot of people work from home now.
My point was bedroom that's 150 square feet. You have 2 bedrooms that's 300. If it's 1100, you got a lot of space for a kitchen and a living room. I think 1,000 is good enough.
Listen, I've been visiting with a lot of customers that work from home. So I've been going to people's houses to do estimates and all that kind of stuff. And just in my business and the small amount of people that I've been dealing with, 90% of them work out of their kitchen. They have their stuff set up on their kitchen. That's where their office is. And if they have another significant person working from home, that person is generally either at the other end of the kitchen table or they're in the bedroom. So,
or the living room.
Yeah, right. They literally need a spot for a cable, Wi-Fi, printer that both people would share. I'm just telling you from my experience, it's generally kitchen table is their home office. So I think if we're going to do an apartment in Monroe, I'm still in strong favor of 1,000 square feet. I don't think we need to go any bigger than that. And that's where I'm comfortable at. And I'm just one vote, but that's where my comfort level stands.
And what were you saying? So you're saying that 1,100 square feet is for more, the apartments that are being built are more high end. High end is usually bigger.
Right. We will be seeing another application for more apartments in Monroe coming right down the road. And the higher end apartments, 2-bedroom is usually 1,200. And for what it's worth.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we're kind of split again here. Ryan, I haven't heard from you.
Can I make a suggestion?
Go ahead.
We have 5 commissioners that can vote. Can we just put it
I
out?
would. I'd rather you not do that.
It's not a vote.
Consensus of everybody, so you're not prejudging your determination at the end.
Okay, we have
Plus
we have 7 people. We have 7 people here. We have 7 people here tonight. Can we just ask all 7 people if they're in favor of 1,000 or 1,100?
Yes, we can do that.
And again, let's be before you do. This is to be clear that this is for going to a draft at a hearing. That's what you're talking.
Right. So Bruno, go ahead. What was your vote or your
1,000.
suggestion?
My suggestion is 1,000.
Okay. Leon.
I'm going with 1,100, Mike, that we discussed.
All right. Rob.
I think that 1,000-foot 2-bedroom apartment is a luxury size apartment.
Ryan?
Yeah,
Did I ask you already? Go ahead, Ryan.
I like 1,000.
Dominic?
I have no vote tonight.
Yeah, you do. We're asking all 7 commissioners.
You do. You're a commissioner.
Okay, so my question is, are we limiting it? I mean, I'm not in favor either of 1,000 or 1,100 or 1,200, just for discussion. if we choose, let's say, 1,000, and a developer comes in with 1,050, does that mean we stop it?
Yes.
Huh?
That's
Yes.
what that means.
If that's the case, then I agree with go a little bit higher, at least the 1,100. Most developers, they try to fit in within their budget. So if I don't think we should limit it so that they're stuck with that particular number.
That's what we have to do that.
Dominic, you want somebody to put in a one apartment for 5,000 square feet?
No,
So then how are you going to stop them?
if that's the case, then I would say no bigger than 11, but leave it up to him to go 900 or 11.
Yes, we are
But
doing
that's what
that.
but that's what you're doing. We're asking
Dominic,
for a maximum amount. We're not asking for them to build every single one at 1,000. We're
Okay.
saying nothing can exceed a
That's a little
specific.
bit. If that's the case, then I would stay maximum 1,100.
Thank you.
All right, who hasn't voted? Ron, did you vote?
No, I'm going to say 1,000. I
You're
think
the tiebreaker.
I think a two-bedroom is fine in 1,000 feet. I think 1,100 just makes another third bedroom. Not that you can, but I think 1,000 is big enough.
And Mike, where are you?
I'm with 1,100.
All right, so 4 to 3, 1,000.
All right. So then we'll direct Will to go ahead with a text amendment covering what we've covered over the past few meetings and to bring it to a public hearing.
okay,
All right.
okay.
So let's move on to correspondence, new applications. There are none. Chairman's report, I have none. Do any of the commissioners have anything they would like to add to the meeting?
Will the next meeting be in person? Any information so far on that?
I haven't heard any change. Rick, has First Selectman made any commitment to letting us have a hybrid yet, or are we still virtual for commission level meetings?
As of today, that's still a work in progress. He's anticipating it. It's a work in progress as of today.
So I would anticipate we're gonna have to probably keep it virtual because at some point I gotta post everything, so.
Thank you.
All right, Rick, do you want to go ahead with your report?
I just want to circle back to the public informational meeting. We have the 15th and then the 29th. I feel that the 15th is too soon. But, you know, Will and I will check with everyone tomorrow. But we got to make, if we do the 15th, we have to finalize it tomorrow.
Is there no way to poll tonight?
Well, right now, I'm good with the 15th or the 29th, whatever works best for you guys.
Okay, Rob?
Either date works for me.
Ron?
You guys asked me before in the email, and Thursdays just are really tough. I barely make it home for the meeting. I can't just take it off. I'm off on Wednesday, so I said Wednesday to Rick, but
Oh,
all right.
both Thursdays, yeah. Dominic,
Either day is good for me.
either day?
Yes.
Leon
Either day.
and Bruno?
Let's do the 29th then, if the 15th is too short.
Hey,
I
Mike.
thought Thursday was tough for you.
We have a meeting on the 29th, I believe, don't we?
No, we don't. We have a meeting on the 22nd.
Oh, it's the 22nd. All right. Yeah, I'm good with the 29th.
Yeah,
Mike,
I think that gives
Mike,
enough time.
Mike, it's Bruno, and I can probably do either day. So whatever the majority wants, I'm there.
Sounds like the 29th, Rick.
Yeah, it gives us more time to advertise.
All right.
And So that also depends on it allowing us to have that hybrid meeting, correct?
Yeah.
No, this was virtual,
Oh, yeah, virtual, yeah.
Oh, is
completely
it
virtual.
100% virtual?
100%
Yeah, phone,
virtual.
call in, well,
No, but I mean everybody,
yeah,
including the commissioners.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay. What are we gonna do at we have a 250 cap, correct?
No, phone-ins up to 1,000.
Oh, I didn't think our system handled more than 250.
No,
Georgie,
it's
is
not,
that
it's
correct?
not the go-to meeting, it's another, system.
Oh, it's a different, oh, okay. All right, we gotta
We've
get
never
that.
used that.
Yeah, so we gotta practice that, I think.
We gotta practice, that's what I'm saying. 15th is gonna be too soon.
Okay.
All right, Rick, do you have anything else?
No, it's, let's keep moving ahead, with the POCD.
All right, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
You have a motion,
Ambrosi, second.
Second it.
and we have a third. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Night, everybody.